Good morning, and thank you all for joining us as we talk about a very, very serious topic that has impacted women, whether they are dealing with this in silence or they are open about their healing process or their next steps after dealing with domestic violence. So, welcome to Silent No More. I am your host, Dr. Monica Hunter. And again, I'm excited that you all have decided to tune in this morning. The topic is surviving domestic violence in silence. So many times when women are experiencing abuse at the hand of their spouse or loved ones, what happens in the house stays in the house. Okay. So they don't want people to know what's going on because they have to protect the image of their family. And so a lot of times women go through the process of domestic violence without seeking that help. And so we have a couple of women who are going to join us this morning. Kamita and Deborah. They're going to share their stories of domestic violence and what women can do if they're experiencing domestic violence at this time. Before we do that, I have a couple of shout outs. So I was minding my own business the other day, and I was working on my branding. And as I was working on my branding, this guy's name popped in my head, someone that I've worked with for years and years and years and years. His name is Jonathan Johnson. Okay. John, Mr. Do It All. So if you live in the Kentucky area and you are working to brand yourself for the services that you provide for your business, he does business cards. He does graphic design, flyers, websites. He's actually building my website as we speak. But I wanted to shout him out because last time I posted a logo that he did for me for my business, Dr. Monica Enterprises. He said that his business started to boom. So I wanted to make sure that I shouted him out this morning. Also, I went on Deborah Montgomery's page the other day, and she's a Mary Kay consultant. So when I went on there to look at her catalog, her online catalog, I noticed a meme, or it wasn't a meme, it was a TikTok video that she shared with me. So I wanted to warn you ladies, whether you live in the Houston area, which is where this happened, or anywhere in the country, there is this crazy, sadistic means to inflict women with some poison, some resin that's on napkins. So what they're doing is they're putting poison on a napkin. They're putting it on doors. And when you take your hand to remove it from your door to get inside your car, then the poison infiltrates your skin. And then she had all types of stuff that happened. It was pretty bad. So I want y'all to be mindful. If something is, something just happened. If something is on your car door, something is on your car windshield, don't remove it with your hands because you could potentially be in harm's way. Okay. So I just wanted to remind you all to be safe as you travel to and fro day to day. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our two guests. First, we have Miss Kamita and we have Miss Deborah. Thank you, ladies, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
I'm so excited to have you two. So I actually met Kamita virtually based on a recommendation from Tanya White, who is the owner of S&T Publishing. She is actually leading the publishing process for my book, Daughter in the Shadows, which will be released at the end of September for purchase. And we'll have our book signing October 22nd. But when I posted on Facebook that I was going to have this topic, she said, you've got to get Kamita on your show. You've got to reach out to her. She has a powerful story. And she would like to share it if given the opportunity. I know she would. And so I appreciate that plug. And Kamita, would you like to share some information about yourself with the audience?
Yes. Kamita Pryor, born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. I currently work with Momentum Title Agency, Mortgage Title. I'm the receptionist in the Louisville office. I love it there. It fits me. I am also a Mary Kay consultant. I have been one for 4 years. Um, Writing in the book with Tanya is the first time I've ever written anything, but I had always had a desire to do so. So that is definitely on my list to do my own book. Um, I'm just really happy to be here and to be able to speak and share my voice. Though my word for my season in my life right now is voice, and that's to be the voice for myself, for my sister, and for others who feel like they don't have it within in themselves to be the voice. So that is part of my purpose.
Thank you, Kamita. And Deborah?
Hi, I'm Deborah Austin Montgomery / Montgomery. I have 2 Facebook pages. I love life. I love energy. I love positive vibes. I work for a corporation, been here for 24 years, and I'm a Mary Kay consultant. So if you need Mary Kay products, I got you. And I have one son, Charles, and I have a beautiful granddaughter, Nyla Rose. And I just love life, and I'm here to share my mom's story about domestic violence and how it has affected our family, and about the situation and the circumstances around what happened that day and how it can help other families out there in the community. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. So let me tell y'all about Deborah. First of all, she's the life of the party. Okay. So I don't think we met in person until recently, maybe a few months ago. But I saw her on Facebook quite frequently. She has such a big personality, and she is all about self-love and self-care and promoting the same level of confidence in other women. And so she was posting about working out. And she said, I have all these fans all over the country who tune in and they ask me questions about working out, but I don't have anybody locally that'll work out with me. And I was like, I'll go. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, friend. We weren't even friends yet. I was like, hey, friend, I would like to work out with you. And she's like, sure, I would love for you to work out with me. And so we went to Planet Fitness. So let me tell y'all. So I've had a trainer for quite some time. And then I removed myself from the training atmosphere because I got busy. And then once you stop working out, you stop working out. And so I was like, I can just jump back on that wagon. Let me go work out. I'll be just fine. When I tell you I was sweating bullets, and she was like, Lord. I was like, Lord, I can't go any lower. I haven't worked out for months, child. I need a moment. Give me a break, honey. But that was what I needed to get back into the habit of working out. So since then, I've switched jobs, and so I'm not as close to the gym that we worked out at. So I'd work out. I'm actually going to start with my trainer again next week, Monique Price, who was amazing. But I can tell that I'm not as in shape as I was. Okay. I'm okay with being a thickette. I'm okay with being a thickette, but I need to get myself together. I need to get myself together. So thank you for encouraging and empowering women to get off the sofa and get to the gym or even at home. What'd you say?
She be jamming. I be watching stuff. The girl be moving. I be watching. I be over here, I do my talk. But girl, Deborah, you be jamming, girl.
Thank you. I tell people, they say, well, how do you do it? I got people from Africa, Nigeria, all the states. I do podcasts and things like that. People come in my inbox, and I'm on Black Women's official workout page. And that's where a lot of my support comes from. Just beautiful women all around the world, just willing to look at you and get motivation and inspiration from you. And I tell you, it has been the biggest blessing of my whole entire life to be a blessing to someone else. If they just see me working out, they like, I'm gonna get off the couch now. She can do it, but don't let the size fool you, because because when you come and work out with me, you're gonna get worked out, because I love to work out now. And they say, well, how do you do it? I said, well, it starts with dancing. I have a knack for dancing. As soon as the music comes on, my body moves. I don't tell it to move. The body moves. So that's what. So that's how it starts. I'm just like,
Yeah. So, so I literally just watched the video. Remember a couple of weeks ago when we went to, what was the conference that we went to? It was a one-day conference. Spicy Wife.
yeah, spicy wife.
Data Mall, sis. Data
Data
Mall,
Mall,
sis.
sis,
That was
honey.
it. And we did the line dance, the Tamia line dance. I just
Mhm.
watched that video yesterday.
Mhm.
And I was like, honey, she is getting it. She is
Mhm.
getting it. Getting.
Yes.
G-E-N, getting it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So today we have a really serious topic, and it's about domestic violence. So really quick, ladies, I don't want you to tell your story yet because you will have the opportunity to do so. But when you think about domestic violence, what are the thoughts that come to mind? Or abuse in general? What are the thoughts that come to mind?
Pain. Love doesn't hurt. Trust being broken. Abuse, abandonment.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think of different levels. I think, society thinks one way of domestic violence, and it's many ways. It's more than what you normally see. It's different stages, phases, and all of that. And it can be generational.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um, the thoughts that come to mind, since I actually experienced it, was why me? Like, what energy did I put in the space to make anyone feel as if it was okay to mistreat or abuse me? Why me?
Mhm.
And I still don't know. I think about it and I still don't know. I try to make peace and get along with everybody. So I don't know if it's because I lacked assertiveness. I don't know. I don't know what it is. And I don't think I need to know the answer to the why me. But I think just self reflecting on how I can build my confidence. And as I empower others, empower myself to look for those red flags, not ignore them, and give people a pass. Now, if it's a red flag, it's a red flag, and run before you accept, because eventually you could potentially feel stuck. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and get into my story. So I was married. So let me preface this, okay? There have been rumors about my experience with the domestic violence. This is the first time in the, let's see, 22 years that I initially experienced it, that I've ever talked about it. The first time. So I never, after my divorce, there are rumors about why I left, why she left, and she left because of this. And because I was so secretive about what happened within the home, people pointed the finger at me. She left because she's crazy, because he's a charismatic man. People love him. Why would she leave him? It's her. And I never said anything until today. So those that know me, y'all might want to tell other people to tune in or watch this later because I'm spilling the beans. Okay.
Okay.
But I didn't say anything because I was protective of my family. I have 3 children, and I did not want them to have the stigma of domestic violence or the chatter of the people in the community, because we come from a really, really small town. We lived in a really small town in Southern Indiana for about 15 years, close to 15 years. And so I didn't want the rumor mill to get to them. And then they have to, because we were public figures. He was a pastor, and we had the largest Black church in that small area. So we would have been the topic of discussion, the point of discussion. And I wanted to protect them. Not only that, I still to this day respect him as my kid's father. I chose to have children with him. So when other people spread rumors about it, I never fed into it because I respect him to this day as my kid's father. That was my choice. Despite the red flags before we got married, and there were plenty of them, that was my choice. And so I was pondering on what story to share. I have, a lot of the stories, a lot of the accounts of domestic violence are in my book. And I didn't want to share one of those because you'll be able to read about those. But what is something that I could share to really give a bird's eye view of what happened within my marriage with domestic violence. So I thought about a time, it was back in, my son was born in 2001. So it was in 2001, I was expecting my youngest child. And my oldest was about 5. And then my middle was about 1 year old. And so we were getting ready for church one Sunday. And so I will tell you this about my mom. When I was younger, she would, we may not have had dinner every Sunday, but she had us grease. We had the baby lotion on, the Vaseline. We were greased, and we were sitting on that sofa waiting to get in the car to go to church. And so if I didn't know anything else, if I didn't learn anything else about parenting from my mom, I learned that you want your kids, when it's time to go to church, you want them looking nice. Grease them up real good so they look nice for the people when we walk into the church. And so that's what I had done. I had dinner was being prepared. So I remember the meal. It was meatloaf, macaroni and cheese, and cabbage, and cornbread. And I had my oldest son all dressed, and I had my 1-year-old dressed, and I had them trained to sit on the sofa until it's time to go. So I had them dressed, and I thought I turned the cabbage on low to simmer, but I put it on high, and I went and took a shower to get myself ready for service. And I knew I had all my clothes laid out, and I was at a church that was kind of strict, so we didn't wear like makeup and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't have to worry about primping too much. Just go in there, take a shower, I love smell goods, take care of that, put on my dress, and then get ready to go. 20, 30 minutes tops. In the meantime, in between time, I started smelling the smoke from the cabbage. So the moisture from the cabbage dried up, and the cabbage started to scorch, which caused the smoke detector to go off. So I had my robe on. I ran out there like, what's going on? What's going on? And I realized the cabbage was burning. I look over on the sofa, and they're sitting like I left them, but with lotion all over them from head to toe. And I was thinking, when did this happen? Still to this day, I don't know which one it was. One of them went over to the diaper bag, got the lotion, and decided to do some extra lotioning up. So now I have the burning cabbage. I'm in a robe. I have to get them ready for church. We have 20 minutes to leave. And here comes my husband walking out. And he said, what is going on? What is going on out here? I said, well, the cabbage, I was trying to explain to him. And I was like, well, let me go ahead and get the kids ready and turn off the stove. So I went in the kitchen and turned off the stove. And he took my hair and yanked me down to the floor. And normally this happened on quite a few Sundays. This wasn't the first time. This was one of the many times. But normally we have plenty of time for me to gather myself, get myself together, and still leave looking like a minister's wife, because he was a minister at the time. And everything would be fine. But I'm thinking, because I'm a fixer, we only have 20 minutes. I don't have time to get dragged and choked before service. Normally I have about an hour. And that means I can cry, I can go get dressed, I can still be ready to go and still make it to church on time. We don't have time today. So I was like, well, maybe if he understands we don't have time, then it'll stop. He'll stop. He did not stop. So he drugged me down the hallway. We had a small apartment in Terre Haute, Indiana. Drugged me down the hallway. And I was trying to get away from him. I was pregnant with my youngest at the time. So this was summer. So he was due in October. I had him in October. So I was probably like 5 months pregnant. And I was saying his name, and I'm pregnant. Please stop. Please stop. The kids knew to stay on the sofa. They knew. They were trained. You don't move. And he was just telling me how horrible of a wife I was, how horrible of a mother I was, and all these things. And we were late to service that Sunday. And our pastor was really strict about ministers and their wives being on time for service. And so we were like 20 minutes late, which meant he had to sit in the audience and not on the pulpit with the other ministerial staff. And I was like, this is not going to be good after service. And so this is before we had cell phones. I started thinking, what can I do to protect myself for after service? What can I do? And I was like, I'm going to invite the young people over to eat. And all I have to do is buy some chicken. I had plenty of sides. They can just come over, because I turned off the cabbage and all that kind of stuff. And we had the macaroni and cheese. All I had to do was like whip up something like corn or something real quick, and we would be good to go. That way we'd have people at the house and nothing else would happen after service. So I was sitting there And we have what we call popcorn praise. And so one person would stand up with the scripture or popcorn praise, and somebody else would. And I'll never forget the scripture that was shared was John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And when I heard the words, for God so loved, I was thinking, he's got to love me. I know he loves me. Talking about God. So I can deal with this. I know I'm going to be engulfed with God's love. And so I can make it through. I'll be okay. And I guess that when I heard that, I just began to wail and cry. Like I just was crying uncontrollably. And I'm not an emotional person. And so I've cried at church. Before that time, I cried at church, but it was like, it was worship. Like, God, I thank you. I appreciate you. Not I need help. I guess the sound was a little bit different because after that service, the pastor's wife came to me and I thought maybe God showed her what I was experiencing and we could get some help. And she said, don't ever let the women in the church know what's going on at your home. And I was thinking, what? She said, I could tell by the way you were crying something's going on at home. Don't ever let them know. So I'm thinking, I don't know what I could have done differently. I was really upset and I was really crying out for help. And I was also crying because I really did appreciate his love because I hadn't lost my mind at the time. And I was living my life outside of the home to build for my family. But that stuck with me. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I kind of understood, and she passed away, but it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I kind of understood what she was saying or what she was trying to say. Because basically protect what's at your house, because if a woman can sense that something is wrong, then they can come in and try to swoop what you have. Now, do I believe that? Not exactly, but I don't think that she meant that in a malicious way. But that was one of many Sundays. And I don't know I don't know why that happened it happened on other days of the week too, but it happened quite a bit on Sundays. And what's crazy is I had fashioned our lives around making sure that if something happened, we had plenty of time to still make it look like it was okay. And so I conditioned my kids to do the same thing. And it was so bad when I finally left the situation 14 years later, one of my kids said, and it's in the book, and I asked him if it was okay for me to share this. He said, Mom, if you would just get over what happened, a couple of years ago, that's when I ended up with 17 stitches over my eye. Our family would be fine. And I had done so much to protect them from what was actually happening that I normalized it for them. And so I was basically being blamed for the violence that was happening in the home, because every time something happened, I always said, once they were old enough to understand, I would say, your dad has had a bad moment. Everybody has bad moments. And he just had everything's going to be fine. They were adults and they finally told me that they were afraid. Every time he left after something happened, they were afraid for him to come home. So I'm trying to protect them from the reality. And when my son said that about if you would just get over what he did to you a couple of years ago, we'd be fine. That's what I needed to break away, because I didn't want them to be products of their environment and then think that it was normal and then violate another woman, abuse another woman, because that's all that they know. And so I finally left after years of experiencing this. And I will say this, the last time he actually hit me was December 24th, 2011. And I ended up with 17 stitches. I have a permanent scar. If you notice, my eyebrows are off. It's because I was hit here, had 17 stitches. And so people always say, when you do your eyebrows, they're asymmetrical. Well, there's a reason for that. I don't go into the story, but there's a reason. It's because I was socked in the eye on Christmas Eve in 2011. And with that instance, he ended up calling the police. And on him, well, he was trying to call the police on me. He called it. I said, but you're the one that did this. And I'm not going to go into that story because that's actually in the book. Well, because my kids were there, we lived in a county. The city didn't take on the case. The state police did. And they actually ended up filing charges on him. And they said, when we went to court, the judge, put all these parameters in place, anger management classes, and he never did hit me again after that. But then he started to publicly humiliate me. He was a pastor. He would publicly humiliate me. He would call me names, terrible names. He would take ministries that I was over, take them away from me. It got pretty bad emotionally and mentally. And at that point I said, if the person that vowed to love and protect me for the rest of my life treats me this way, he doesn't even like me, why am I here? So then I started to have suicidal ideations. My kids would be better off without me. Because some of what he's saying has got to be true. And I remember missing 2 services, 2 Sundays in a row. And my friends, Ashley and Anjali, came to my house. And they said, you can't do this. I said, I can't. And the house, I had my blinds closed. I was in a dark room under the cover. I said, I want to do this anymore. And they said they could feel my energy while they were in service. They said, we got to go rescue her. And so they prayed for me and they said, we're not leaving until you're okay. And they stayed with me for hours that day. And I cried and cried. And they didn't even know what was going on. But I cried and cried and cried and cried. And I could not understand why. What if I try to be the best wife that I can? I try to be the best mother that I can. I'm working. I'm going to school. I'm taking care of the bills. I'm taking care of the church. Why? What else can I do to prove to him that I love him enough to sacrifice myself for him? And that didn't have anything to do with me. It was his own insecurities and his own, level of narcissism. But I'm glad that I was able to break free. And once I left, he had a stroke and I considered going back. This after the divorce was final and everything, because I was so used to taking care of him and making sure he was okay in my eyes. And my middle son said, don't do that. Because I asked him, how would y'all feel because I knew at that point, he couldn't hurt me anymore because he was paralyzed on his left side. He couldn't hurt me anymore. So I could take care of him. And my son said, Mom, he said, don't do that. He said, you've never looked so much at peace and happy ever in my life. I've never seen you look so much at peace or happier ever. Don't do that to yourself. And then I said, okay, I won't. But even I still struggle because I don't even understand why at that point I was willing to go back to take care of him, knowing all of our history. But that's basically a little glimpse of my story. I do appreciate that I'm away from it. And I'm thankful that I can empower women now to reflect on where they are and get out if they need to get out. Okay. If they know that they're in an abusive situation, get out, get help. And so that's my story. As my grandmother used to say, that's my story, morning glory. So do y'all have any questions for me or anything y'all like to share?
Wow. I did not. Oof. That's a cliffhanger right there.
Yeah.
Because as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, 13, 14 years. And I think about myself, there is no way that, first of all, anybody could hit me and get away with it because I would probably dust them. And there's no going back for me at all. I don't know if I come to have built myself up to this level at the age of 50 or what type of circumstances you might have been in at what age. But I remember myself at the age of 13, 14, 15, 16, 20s, and 30s. If you hit me, it was on. Mm-hmm. So I've been in a fights, but domestic wise, no. And so I was thinking, what kind of mind, like my mother and like yourselves, how do y'all get, what's the process? Because I couldn't see myself in that type of situation. So I wonder, are there other women, who think like me? Because I know how you think, but do they think like me? Because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a lack of self-worth. So when you said something a second ago, you said something in your childhood, when you're told over and over that you're not going to be by the people that are supposed to love you, you don't think that you will be. When you're told you're not worthy, and then finally you have somebody that is willing to be with you and marry you, and we have children. So whatever I can do is it's a level of codependence. Okay. I did some research. I figured it out for a piece of it. Codependence. If I can show you that I can take care of you, then I'll be worthy of you keeping me. You can keep me around. Even after the divorce, even after the stroke, I'll go back and take care of you because at least then I know that's codependence. And codependence is a result of childhood trauma. Perfectionism is the same thing. So I will take care of you to prove to you that I'm lovable. And so if you hit me, it was a bad moment. Everything's okay. I know that he loves me because he's here. He's providing. I know what's going to happen if I leave. I have to start all over and find somebody else who's going to love me. So it stems from lack of self-worth, lack of self-confidence, lack of self-esteem connected to the treatment that most adults have experienced at the hands of the ones that took care of them as a child. It's a result of childhood trauma most of the time. And I'm hoping that most women are like you.
Right.
I found that when it first started, because the very first time wasn't a punch into the eye or anything like that. When I did try to fight back, it got worse. And he's a man at man strength. And so I would try to fight back, and then the choke got harder, or the hit got harder, or I got dragged longer. So if I just go limp, or if I don't fight back, or if I try to tell him you're hurting me, then maybe he'll stop. And to be honest, that worked, because when I fought back, it got worse. And so eventually I got to the point where I couldn't do it. And I will say this, he didn't beat me up all the time. It was like I was in therapy. My therapist said, don't say that. One time is one time too many. But it was once or twice a year that happened. And it was mainly around holidays for some reason. So it was once or twice a year that happened until 2011. Then it didn't happen anymore. That form of abuse stopped. But I'm not going to say anything else. Deborah, I believe that you're next with your story. Did you want to share something, Kamita?
Huh?
Did you want to share something?
No, just breathing.
Okay.
Just listening to that. I just had to take a breath. That's all.
All right. Deborah.
Thank you. Yeah. My story about domestic violence is about my mom, Joanne Montgomery. Loving, caring mom, single mom of 4 kids, born and raised up in the projects, the worst projects in Louisville, Kentucky, Carter Homes. And we never went without. We always had food. As a matter of fact, a friend told me the other day, he was like, were you poor or were you subsidized? I was just like, we were poor. He was like, no, poor is when you open up the refrigerator and all you have is ice chips. Subsidized is when you have WIC and your mama went and got free cheese and eggs and things like that, and she made things work. And I said, well, my God, I guess we was subsidized. I wasn't poor because we had everything everybody else had. So I thought that was a good take on my upbringing. And my mother was the protector of all of her kids. Like if she had parties or whatnot, and we were not to be seen. You were not to be heard. So if she had adults over, you go to the room, shut the door, because she made sure that no one touched us, no one did anything to us. So she was 4 kids, took care of us well. And then one year, my mother hit rock bottom, I guess. She started feeling like, I'm 47 years old. I have not got married yet. I've had 4 kids. What have I done wrong? These words is coming out of her mouth because I'm in college at this time, and I'm hearing her like, what are you talking about? My mother's the Queen of Sheba. She, you're the boss chick. You did all of these things, all of these years, and now you're feeling low on yourself. I was like, she must be going through something, a midlife crisis or something. So as she kept talking about, I've never been married. The next time somebody proposed to me, I'm just going to get married, because she started feeling like, I want love. I want a wedding. I want a ring. And I passed up all of these proposals, And now at the age of 47, I want to finally get married. So that's what she did. She met a man 1 month, married him the next month, and 6 months later, he killed her.
Mm.
And the 3rd month into their marriage, she called me to the house and said, Deborah, come over here. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and me and my ex-husband, got out of the bed, ran over to the house, and was just like, what's going on? Because my mother was never in trouble, never been hit on that I knew about at all from any man. So this is the first time I'm actually seeing anything wrong in her household. I saw glass broke. I saw blood where he had punched the door with his fist to turn the knob to get in. And when he got in, he beat her. And I looked at my mother. I said, somebody hit you? Are you serious? What's his name? Because remember, she met him 1 month, married him the next month, met him 1 month, married him the next month. We didn't know him. We didn't go on, any trips with him, or, we never came to the house to eat dinner with him because it happened so quick. We just knew she got married. She was happy, or whatever she wanted to do. She was an adult. So the police was there, and the police took a report, and they said, ma'am, what's his name? I said, I know his name is Sean. They was just like, well, what's his last name? I said, I don't know. I don't even know what he looks like. And my mother was just like, I'm all right. I'm all right. I said, no, you're not. You called me at 2 o'clock in the morning. Your face is bleeding. You got concussions upside your head. He broke the glass. There's blood everywhere. You're not okay. And then she took and said, I'm okay. I said, what is his last name? And she would not give his last name. The police officer said, ma'am, we see this all the time. In 3 months, you will be dead. In 3 months, my mother was dead. She was right.
Mm.
And it would happen on Memorial Day, 2000. In the backyard, they were barbecuing. And prior to him marrying my mom, he had another girlfriend. That girlfriend was pregnant with his child. So me speculating on what the argument was is my mom, I know her mouth. She's slick. She probably told him, go on, be with the baby mama or something like that. And he's telling her, no, I love you. I want to be here with you. She was like, nah, because you've been over there and you need to stay on over there. And that's how it went. And so he was just like, no, I'm not doing nothing. And he picked up a knife and was just like, and then stabbed her.
Mm.
And when he stabbed her, it hit a main artery. It wasn't like multiple stabs. It was just one stab to the chest, and it hit a main artery, and she suffocated off her own blood. And that's what killed her. So he was on the run. Sean Patterson was on the run in Louisville for 3 days because he was already on the watch, is what they call it, when they put a watch around your ankle, for beating up the ex-girlfriend who was having his baby. Speed it up a little bit, he was charged with murder 20 years prior to murdering my mom, but beat those charges because they didn't have forensic evidence to prove that he was the murderer. So he got off on those charges. Fast forward, House Bill 463.
Yes, talk about that.
Let him out of prison early for good behavior, because it states that if you serve 85% of your sentence on a class B, C, D felon, you don't have to go before a parole board in the state of Kentucky to have the family notified that that you're getting out of prison. So if it wasn't for my sister calling the Vine line, keeping up with him every year, because we wanted to make sure that he stayed in there. Even though you can heal, you don't forget. Even though, you go through some things, you still want that person to know how they affected your family. So we stayed up with it, and then we come to find out that a legislator, Jim Wayne, wrote a House Bill 463 that stated that if you were convicted of a Class B, C, D felon, you do not have to go before a parole board. So he was out roaming the streets of Louisville free, and the family was not notified.
He wasn't on house arrest or anything.
He didn't have to. They say that this House bill is to save Kentucky $30 million a year, not to have a parole board. So when you get out, you are supposed to be reformed back into society. So if he was so reformed when he got back into society, why did he beat and drag a woman off a Louisville twerk bus that was public notice on TV that he did this 1 year after he got out of prison, if he was so much reformed? So was he reformed? No.
No, absolutely not.
No.
Is he in prison now, or is he?
Oh no, he's running the streets right now. Sean Patterson. So I stand as an advocate for women and men of domestic violence. If anybody needs help or if anybody wants to talk, I'm an advocate, and I will sing my mother's praises for the rest of her life until the day I die about domestic violence and how hurt people, and hurt is not supposed to hurt. Love is not supposed to hurt. And love yourself. Make yourself feel important in life. But I wanted to come on here to let people know about House Bill 463. And it doesn't matter what crime it is, murder, robbery, whatever that person went to prison on in the state of Kentucky. If it's a Class B, C, D felon, they do not have to serve those years that you hear in court. They will get out. So be careful with how you vote.
Yes, absolutely. Which is wonderful because we're going into the voting season, November. Make sure that you know the officials that you're voting for and what they stand for. And you know what's crazy? As you were talking, it came to my mind. What rehabilitation do they offer the families? So this person's in prison, could potentially have a social worker, could not. If they're trying to save money, they have all these inmates and they don't have a lot of social workers in there. But how do we know, first of all, that he was rehabbed? He was prepared for society.
Right.
2, what services have y'all provided for the families who've lost loved ones to the hands of the person that you're releasing on House? Is it Senate Bill or House Bill 463?
House Bill 463.
House Bill 463. What services have you provided for the family who have every right to rehab, but may not have the means to rehab? So while you're trying to save $30 million to prevent the state from having or implementing or indoctrinating a parole board, you have family members that could potentially right now be fearful for their lives because you let somebody out because you said they were rehabbed. They said they were rehabbed. But what help has family received in dealing with their loss at the hand of this person that you think should roam the streets freely? No ankle bracelet.
Right.
No check-ins with parole officers, no random drops, none of the things. Shame on our state. Shame on the state of Kentucky for doing that.
Right. And Gilbert Corsley, he was a member of my church choir. He did a story on it. And Ann Bowden, when she worked for the news channel, she also did a story on it. And we visited Jim Wayne when I think he might not be serving anymore, to ask him why he would write such a bill. And all we got was a slap on the hand.
It makes me think, who's getting a kickback from that $30 million saving? Because it doesn't matter if it's a new phone system at a school or a house bill, somebody gets a kickback. And so they're living a lavish lifestyle, going to Dubai or wherever on their kickback. And we have a lady here who's still suffering because her mom was taken from the hands of a man that was released from prison. Shame on our political system in Kentucky. Shame on them. Whew. Now I gotta take a breath. Okay.
I'm gonna keep on. I post it every year. I
saw that, and that's why I reached out to you, because I saw your post, and when we worked out, I was thinking she may need to be on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate the fact that you are keeping this on the forefront of the minds of your followers,
Mm-hmm.
because like you said, voting season is coming up, and we do
Mm-hmm.
need to know who supports what bills and what next steps to make sure that our community is safe, or the lack thereof.
Right.
So thank you for sharing. And I know we're getting close to the end of time, and I want Kamita to have plenty of time to share her story of generational domestic violence. Kamita.
Yes. So I didn't even really put it together about generational until I started writing this chapter in this book. On my mother's side, it really started with my grandparents. There was touches of domestic violence. My grandfather had a gambling problem. And, you know, back then, the wives didn't work. My grandmother did not work. They had 10 children. He would, you know, they were born in the South. They moved to the North. He got a good job. So they say, I mean, they had 10 kids. So I don't know how good of a job it was then, but he would give her the money to pay the bills. Well, he would go gamble and then, you know, come back to her to want to get the money from her so he could go pay his gambling debt. When she wouldn't give it to him, then, you know, there would be an altercation. So it started there. I don't know too much about that history, but I just know that there were no conversations between her and her daughters. She had 7 daughters within those 10 children. And with that, my mother was in a situation right out of high school. She married him, lost her first son, her firstborn and her only son with this situation. Then a couple of her sisters were in domestic violence situations. Then it trickled down to myself. I was in a situation out of high school up to 7 years into my mid-20s with someone, and that situation, a lot of alcoholism had to do with that. And, you know, it was, like you said, it wasn't all the time. It was one time, and it was one time only. Because the more I talk about it and the more I think about it, had I not walked away, who knows where that situation would have ended up. And I have a constant reminder every day, because this person hit me in my mouth, and I have a partial tooth right in the front of my mouth. So I have a daily reminder of what happened to me. And I will always say that it was God who put the thought in my mind to walk away from that situation, because it happened and we were together, and, you know, we were still having a sexual relationship. We really didn't define our relationship per se at that point, but it was like, should I stay? Should I go? Should I stay? Should I go? And I literally woke up one day and was like, you know what? I'm not living my life like this. I'm not living my life in fear of the person that I'm supposed to be building a life with, because he thinks this, or he has an issue that he doesn't want to deal with. And, you know, I don't drink like that. I don't get belligerent. I never have. And I woke up one day and was like, I'm not doing this no more. So I cut all ties. I didn't have to go to the police, thankfully, and grateful that I didn't have to do that. I wasn't in fear of him, you know, trying to come back and do anything like that. That wasn't the case. But in the same token, you decided to put your hands on me. And I'm kind of like, Deborah, you know, it happened because you caught me off guard. But who's to say what would have happened the next time? So yeah. I put it in my brain, you know, well, I didn't put it in my brain, but God put it in my brain. You need to walk away. So I walked away from that situation. And then my sister, I don't feel like I had enough conversation with her to tell her, you know, the signs and the things to look for. Now, she had an addiction or an issue with alcohol. And that stems from a lot of childhood things. And I touch on it in the chapter. We both had similar things happen to us in different ways that caused us to have low self-esteem issues and looking for love in all the wrong places. And unfortunately, she just never got the help that she needed. And she drowned her pain with alcohol. With that being said, she ran into a guy that she knew back when she was in high school. They got together. She already had a child with someone else. He didn't have any kids. Alcohol was involved. She drank. I don't know what he was into, but I'm sure he was into something. They had a couple of fights, and the last fight was her death. And he had been locked up before. He had time on the shelf. So when he was arrested, he never actually served time for her murder because he decided to plead. We were going to go to trial. Then he decided to plead. So he pleaded. He got 20 years for her. And at the time she was pregnant with his child, which was her son, would have been her first son. So he got 20 years for her and 5 years for the fetus. Well, since he had time on the shelf, he didn't start serving her the time for her because he ended up dying in prison. We found out through the Vine line, my mom was signed up for it. It called her and said he had been released. And we were like, well, how could he be released? He had 25 years. So how? So it come to find out he passed away. And the only thing that made it real was that I saw it in the paper and it literally had his name and that he died. There was no information. There was no nothing. And I guess that's because he was property of the state. So they don't pay for obituaries or whatever. So she died in 2008 and at the time had a 2-year-old little girl, and he passed away in 2012. So with my situation, it started, like I said, it started with my grandparents, my mom, her sisters, a couple of her sisters, myself, and my sister. I'm understanding my purpose in life. And my purpose in life is to be the chain breaker, to break the cycle and to have the conversations. And I'm very close with her daughter. She is my heart. And I have multiple conversations with her because I am determined she is not going to have any of this in her life that has stemmed from my grandparents on down to my sister. I don't know what it's like to not have my mother because my mother is still living. This child was 2 when her mother was taken from her. And I am determined with everything in me to do all of the talking that I need to do for everyone so that it doesn't happen, that it stops with me. We couldn't, save my sister. And I think about her every day. I wear butterflies as recognition for her. She had a butterfly tattoo on her stomach. So if anybody ever sees me or wonders why I'm always with butterflies, it is to pay homage to my sister and to recognize that domestic violence is real. It comes in all shapes, sizes, and forms. It is not one way. My situation was I was in a relationship with somebody and, it didn't start off like that. It turned into that because we weren't in a healthy relationship. We weren't balanced. I was working. Sometimes he wasn't. We were living together, probably shouldn't have been living together. And, I was going in one direction in life and he was here. And I was trying to live in the potential of who he could be instead of paying attention to who he was. And being older and looking back, because this was 20 something years ago that this happened. I was in my 20s when this happened. And, I came from a 2-parent household. I saw that. And in my mind, it was like, okay, go to college. I'm with this person, graduate, we get married, have kids. And I actually was pregnant by him. I had a miscarriage. And to this day, that was a blessing that I had a miscarriage because I did not have to be connected to that person for the rest of my life. Because when you have a child with somebody, you are connected to them forever. It is not till the child is 18. It is forever. So I will always say that miscarriage was a blessing because I was able to walk away from this person forever. Do I have any ill will feelings to this person? Absolutely not. I pray that they get the help that they need. I don't know if they have or not, but it's heartbreaking to know that it's so many situations out here that nobody is having the conversation. We say, domestic violence, blah, 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 and generalization, but it's so much deeper than that. And it needs to be brought to the forefront. It needs to be talked about. young ladies, even young men, need to know the signs, know what to look for. And it all starts with self-worth and self-love. If you do not have enough self-worth and self-love to understand what love is and to know how to look for it, then it's always going to be a repetitive cycle. And I am in my 40s, mid 40s at this point, just now getting to understand what it is to love me. And to find who I am. I was lost in my 20s because I thought I knew what love was, but I was not loving myself in the beginning. I just wasn't. There was no talk about self-love coming from my parents' generations, coming from their generation. It is just now being brought to the forefront. And that is why there are so many domestic violence situations that go untalked. Are not talked about because of that, because the person who is experiencing it feels like they shouldn't say anything or they feel shame. Why should you feel shame because somebody else is doing something to you? You should never feel shame, but there is a big shame because of people judging. People do a lot of judging and they don't really, like, as they say, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. So I never put anything past anyone, and I will believe somebody telling me that they're in a situation like that. So my purpose in life, I'm coming to find out, is to be that voice for whoever needs me to be that voice for myself, for my sister, for my mother, for my grandmother, for all women who have, been in these situations and, didn't know how to get out or didn't know how to turn it around. And I'm just grateful and thankful that I was able to walk away. And even still, I felt guilty because I didn't have those conversations with my sister. And, with her having an issue with alcohol, when that is the case, they have to decide that they're tired and they want help. And she just never got to that place where she was like, okay, I need help. She ended up leaving this earth and she was 27 when she died. And, I never in a million years that I think I would be in a position to not have her. She is my only biological sibling that I know of. So, it hurts more than I could ever describe. I've been writing Facebook posts for years about how I feel about that. And I love the way I love because I lost her.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I think is vital for our audience to know is when a woman, or it can happen to a man too, when a person is a victim of domestic violence, their biggest thing is to protect their home. So they normally don't say anything. That's why I titled this show, Surviving Domestic Violence in Silence. Because a lot of times, like when you went to your mom's house to help her, she said, I'm fine. Everything is fine. And what resonated with me with both your stories is being in the seat. We always have hope that things will get better. Because most of the time in the very beginning of the relationship, they come in like a knight in shining armor. I'll do this for you. I can take care of you. I'll love you like you've never been loved before. And they shower the person with so much love and so much potential that we know eventually, or we believe eventually they'll get back to that. Because I know that's in there somewhere. And so instead of seeking help, most people that I've talked to that have experienced domestic violence try to fix themselves so they can be reintroduced to the person they met from the very beginning. And I'm here to tell you all that person in the very beginning was an imposter. That's not who they are. So if you are in a position where you're saying, but I know what he's capable of, like I know he can love me better. I know if I just do this, then he'll change or she'll change. They're not who you know right now. Maya Angelou said, when a person shows you who they are, believe them. You hear me? Believe them.
That's about the best statement ever.
Yes, they're showing you that. And this is what I never had this. I kind of wish I did. After you get popped, you get a nice dinner, you get roses, you get jewelry. I didn't get anything. I didn't get any of the things. But when you are in a position like that, don't believe that either. Don't believe that either. They know, okay, if I pacify him a little bit, then things will go back to normal. She won't be upset anymore. That black eye will heal. And I'll never forget one time I did go to church with a black eye. I was at a church that was very, very strict, and we're out of time now. And we went to the pastor at the time and told, what happened, because things were out of control. And I had on makeup. And he said, "Why do you have on makeup?" I said, "Because my eye is black under here." He said, "Well, I normally don't like for y'all to wear makeup, but it's okay this time because we don't need anybody to know what happened in your home." Not, "Why would you put your hands on her? You're a man of God. You shouldn't be." No, it wasn't that. It was, yes, cover it up so we can cover it up. So I come here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you are in a situation and you don't feel safe, or you're not safe, they put your hands on you one time, they'll put your hands on you again. Whether it's every day, whether it's weekly, whether it's when you go out with your boys or with your girls, whether it's once every 6 months or once every year, it's going to happen again. My situation stopped in 2011 only because the law stepped in. But after that, it shifted from physical abuse, which I would prefer over the mental and emotional abuse that I had to endure the 4 years before I finally left. So if you're in that predicament, please reach out to a family member. Please reach out to a social worker. Contact the domestic violence hotline at 1-800-799-7233 and get out. I'm starting a nonprofit organization. I'm hoping that it'll be able to launch by my birthday. And my goal is to provide a safe place, shelter, literally shelter, for women who are trying to leave domestic violence situations. I'm going to have a show in a couple of months on sex trafficking. So I want a space for them as well. And I want them to get the literacy that they need to be financially secure, get mental health support, find other avenues to support so they can be self-sufficient. A lot of times, and I'm a woman, so I'm saying this from a woman's perspective, a man will say, even their family will say, "Ask me how I know," will say, "You can't make it without him. You can't make it without me. I'm doing this for you. I'm doing that for you. I'm doing this for you." And eventually you'll start to believe it. But because of that, there are organizations who have the premise, who have the mission to save you from that situation. So maybe their money is going to impact you, and then your money will be funny. Reach out to a social worker, reach out to organizations, reach out to this hotline and get help. There is money for you. I promise. There's money for you to get the help you need for your family to be safe. If that's a situation, if that's a circumstance where you're afraid that if I leave, he'll kill me, there are places where you can go where no one will know where you are. They can send you out of town or no one knows where you are, but you don't want to end up like the family members of these two ladies because you think that you have to stay in that situation, or you think that he will get better or she will get better. Save yourself for yourself. Save yourself for your children. Save yourself for the other women and men that are looking at you and that will know she had the strength to remove herself from that. And now she's Monica Hunter. Now she's someone else that is able to survive the domestic violence in silence, but now will speak out to save other women and other men. So thank you, ladies, for being a part of the show. I thoroughly appreciate you. I fought back tears like 4 or 5 times because
we're not gonna talk about that. Right? Let me breathe.
Yes.
I'm a crybaby anyway. So
this is heavy.
That's the whole podcast in itself about the church.
Ooh, yes.
That was deep.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that because Dr. Taylor, she put in our group chat, I think we need to have a second session, a part 2, where we purpose the conversation around healing and how to mend yourself, because it's deep and it's heavy. And if we leave there, then, people can still be broken. And so we're going to come back on September 10th. That's going to be our last Saturday show. We're going to have a show next week on life after divorce. And then we're going to move the show onto Thursdays. But that's going to be a Saturday session, the part 2 for the spiritual abuse, overcoming spiritual abuse, just so we can have a part 2 so we can focus primarily on healing. How do you heal when you've been in those situations? How do you overcome? Where do you how can you find help? Where do you go to seek help? So thank you for mentioning that, because I almost forgot. All right, ladies, I'm going to give you all the last few minutes of the show to share how people can get in contact with you. And I will say this, every panelist that I've had since we started this just a few weeks ago, they've, when they shared their social media handles, people have reached out to them and let them know how they've blessed them and how they feel like they can move forward in life and they can really have their purpose revealed because of what was shared. So you probably will have a couple of inboxes and people just asking for that support. But I want you to share your social media handles. I know you're both Mary Kay consultants. I just ordered some stuff this morning from Deborah. Share anything, share about your book, Kamita. So we'll start with Deborah, Kamita, and then we'll end the show.
Excellent. Thank you for the opportunity today, Dr. Monica Hunter, for letting me tell my story, because anytime somebody gives me the platform to talk about my mom, who was my heart, my best friend, I love it and I welcome it, and I want to get the word out about domestic violence. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
My Facebook handles is Deborah Montgomery, DeborAH with the H, Montgomery, like Montgomery, Alabama. And it's also my TikTok page. Please come follow me. I already have almost 14,000.
I need to
the TikTok sensation.
TikTok session with you then, ma'am.
And I'm happy with my little 150. Okay.
Don't even 150. I don't know how many is on there. It's not that.
Go ahead, tell them about the TikTok, honey. Follow her, y'all. Follow her.
Deborah Montgomery 28 on TikTok, and Deborah Montgomery on Instagram as well. And I also have a second page.
This girl in these social girl.
She's famous. She is famous.
I promise you, when I get married, a whole lot of things might change because he's kind of conservative. So I'm having my fun right now.
No more twerking.
I'm having my fun right now, so I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying life. I look forward to next weekend, life after the divorce, because I swear, after my divorce, I've been having a ball.
Okay. Likewise, sis. Likewise.
Oh man, you can't tell me nothing.
Tell them about your Mary Kay business.
I'm a Mary Kay consultant. I do have a Mary Kay page as well, but you can come on to Deborah Montgomery's Facebook page and Deborah Austin Facebook page, and I share all the time how to just click a link and you can open it up and you can order whatever you need. And if you hit me up on Messenger, I can send you a link and you can order and support me as well. I support everyone. And if you want to support me, I welcome it. I don't hold you to it. You don't have to spend not $1 with me, and I'll still love you the same. God bless you, and thank you again.
You're welcome. Kamita.
Yes, I'm Kamita Speed Meter Pryor on Facebook and TikTok. Alisse, ALISSE 78 on Instagram. And you can message me on Messenger. I am a co-author in The Battle Behind My Smile. This is the chapter that I was referring to earlier. The name of my chapter, it is chapter 13. It's the battle of breaking the cycle of domestic violence. And I talk about what I shared today. I am in the process of writing my own book that's in the making right now. I am also a Mary Kay consultant. Otherwise, I would have supported you, but I'm already doing it. So like such your invite, I was like, dang, I'm already doing it. But I have a website as well. You can go on my Facebook page, inbox me, and I can give you the website to that as well. I am just looking forward to being the voice. This is my season to be the voice, and that's what I'm going to do. Contact me, inbox me. You want a copy of this book? This book is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. The visionary behind this is the reason why I'm even on this podcast today. She is the bomb, Tanya White. Yeah. I will shout her every chance I get, because to go what she went through, to push through, to make this happen, to give all of these authors an opportunity. And this is my first time doing something like this. Phenomenal. Yeah. Phenomenal.
She's working with me as well.
Awesome. Me too. That's how we're connected. Yeah. Tanya White.
Mm-hmm. And shout out to her.
Yes. Somebody inboxed me this morning about the publishing, because I believe they're almost done with their book and they're looking at the publishing aspect of it. And I'm going to refer them to her because she's been absolutely phenomenal.
Mhm.
So thank you, ladies, again. I'm Dr. Monica Hunter. My book is going to be released at the end of September. We're going to do pre-orders, and I'm going to start once we do the podcast in September, we're going to have giveaways. All right. So pre-orders will start September 1st. And as long as you're tuning into the podcast, you have to be tuned in to be a part of the giveaway. I'm giving away 5 books, and they'll be mailed to you before the actual release date. So make sure you tune in. Next week's topic is living life after divorce. Life after divorce. It's been pretty nice. It's been pretty nice. And although there is a grieving process during the actual divorce time, and even after that, there's healing that has to happen. I'm still healing from certain things. As long as you follow a few tips I'm going to share next week, affirm yourself, believe in yourself, put yourself in circles of people who are where you want to be, get you some mentors. You can be better. You will be better than you were before. I promise. I'm a living witness. So tune in next Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I appreciate you all for sharing, for loving, for liking, for commenting. And we will see you next time. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. And y'all go be great. Thank you.
Thank you.